Listen up, pros and broettes. Hit that subscribe button before you click off this video. Lots of cool stuff to check out on this channel. Make sure you ring that bell. Every time you ring the bell, a vegan cries. Let's do this.
Come on, Mommy, stop laughing. We're doing a Brodown.
We've been holding out on this one. My absolute favorite band of all time, without question, as you all know if you are a subscriber to the Brodown, is Pantera. Pantera can do no wrong unless they decide to replace Vinny and Dime with Zach and Charlie. Then Pantera can do some wrong. But
well, Charlie wasn't bad.
I love Charlie. I love Anthrax. I think Charlie's doing a phenomenal job. It's just not Pantera. I've been called a gatekeeper many times and I've never felt like one, but in this particular instance, yes, I will gatekeep.
But it gives people like a chance, like people like me who's never got to see Pantera, a chance to see Pantera. At least say that you've seen Pantera.
But it doesn't.
But it does.
Because unless you've seen Dimebag Darrell, you have not seen Pantera.
Yeah, but we'll never get that, so at least we get that.
You will get to hear Pantera music played pretty well. Let's just be honest, guys. Zach was Dime's brother, so it was only fitting that Zach played in the Pantera tribute.
Yeah.
But he ain't Dime.
Nobody's Dime.
Ola England.
Well, they come pretty close.
Dude from Texas Hippie Coalition. I can name several that sound amazing. Hell, the guy from THC looks. You couldn't all he had to do is headbang and you could literally feel yourself at a Pantera concert. The story of Vulgar Display, told by Phil. God, I wish Jamie Josta were here. He does the best.
And take it away, Josta.
I don't think it would be Pantera without Phil. And that's why the Abbott brothers had the decency to not continue Pantera and create Damage Plan. Which is another reason why I say calling this Pantera is insulting to the Abbott brothers, because
at least they kind of stayed honorable in that way.
Yeah, they could have kept on Pantera. They could have went and got Corey Taylor. Hell, they did go and get Corey Taylor for Damage Plan. They could have continued under the banner Pantera, but they chose not to. They just said, you know what? It's not Pantera without Phil. We're going to change our name to Damage Plan. So quit asking for new Pantera music. It can't happen. The story of Vulgar Display of Power.
Let's do this.
Display of Power was the most important record of our career.
Of all time, I say. Greatest album ever made.
We had conquered Texas and we were packing out clubs and we were used to
I was there.
Sold out shows, stage diving galore. This is back when real circle pits were pits and
there's never been a more dangerous pit than a Pantera pit.
Very controlled chaos and with rules, hidden rules of
organized chaos.
the day, you know. Someone stage dives, you catch them. And then we got our first U.S. tour, which was with Suicidal Tendencies and Exodus.
That tracks.
I didn't see that tour, unfortunately.
And all of a sudden, we were the tiny fish in this massive ocean called the rest of the world. There were several
No one wanted to follow them.
that didn't like us, didn't understand us. So by the time we got around to recording Vulgar Display of Power, the chip on our shoulder, our collective shoulders, was massive.
It was at a time when Pantera was so hungry we would do anything
Vinny!
to take over the world with our music.
Vince
Nice.
Paul, he was the one who said, I don't give a fuck if it's 2 people or 7 people or 10 people. Our job is to kick their fucking ass every single night, and word will spread.
We had just played 338 days on the Cowboys run and went directly into the studio. I think we might have had 3 weeks off. So we were red freaking hot.
We worked with one of the best record producers I've ever worked with, Terry Date.
They did things on their own terms. They didn't care about what major labels or what other people were telling them to do. They did what they wanted to do, how they wanted to do it.
It was a very, very, very focused record.
The work ethic was pretty intense. Our hours were 12, 13, 14, maybe longer. I remember a lot of sunrises on that record.
And this is back when everything was analog, there was no cheating, so it took take after take after take, you know, every chorus.
The band had been touring, we had to go in and write the songs.
We had hit kind of a roadblock in the writing sessions.
You want your voice to do something and you've tried 1,000 times and it's not doing it.
Phil never broke chairs in anger.
Terry told me one time, the only other guy that might have broken as many chairs or stools as me was Chris Cornell.
You know, we had as much
No
fun as we
way.
could with it.
And Phil, I think Philip had the riff for a new level, or had an idea and wanted to get it to die, but he had to get on that same wavelength.
He knew what he wanted, and you know, he didn't stop till he got where he wanted to go.
Okay, let's take a break.
And I remember Dime and Phil went outside and smoked a joint.
Phil, remember that pot I said you couldn't smoke earlier until we were done? Take a hit, brother. Take a hit, man. Relax.
And when they came back, they had this thing.
You go out there and you nail it.
That chunk of that groove, I think that set the whole tone for the whole record.
Right towards the end of the record, we were about 2 weeks away from completing it. We got a call from our A&R guy, Mark Ross, and said, hey man, they just had this big coup in Russia, man, and we would love to have you guys come over and play.
I watched that too.
Loathed in Europe.
We hadn't played live because we've been in the studio.
It was a pretty big deal for the band and myself, playing in front of a crowd that was that size.
1.6 million
We
people.
flew to Russia and we played to 1 million people.
This is called domination.
And they opened.
My favorite song. Ah,
Europe saw us at our strongest, smoking every band we opened for. It was
Not a
almost
lie.
embarrassing for bands to play after us.
Yep.
It was usually embarrassing if a band had to play after us.
He ain't lying. He's joking, he says, but he knows he's
you
serious.
said you know who I'm talking
do.
about.
Bands out there.
Yep.
Got your asses handed to you.
Going from packing out everything in the Arlington region
Just a slight
to
reminder.
playing around the world kind of
It
validated
was tongue in
what they were
cheek, but it
doing.
was fact.
And it's documented. It's called For Those About to Rock, and it was the first time to ever play with Metallica or AC/DC. And the fans had no idea who Pantera was, but they treated us like Led Zeppelin. It was just an amazing experience, and we got right back into the studio and finished the record.
I saw them wanting to give their fans a record that reflected what they saw when they were playing it live.
As a musician, it's one of those records you just pinch yourself, you know. It happens just so naturally, and we knew how to play it. We played off each other so well that we knew exactly where the breaks were going to be, and when we listened back to that, we were just a bunch of like little kids, at Christmas time.
By the time we recorded it and were ready to tour that record, we were in our strongest bodies. We were in the prime of our youth, and we took that chip on our shoulders to every single show, every single city, every single state. To me, that really signified our first true album of what was to come.
And the highest it ever got on Billboard was number 42. People find that hard to believe. 42. Our next record, Far Beyond Driven,
Number one.
But that record only got to number 42, but it did sell platinum in many, many countries around the world.
Vulgar Display kind of
How did it not
laid the
get top
groundwork, and
10?
I think Pantera was the band that carried metal
Like
through the rest of the
Portnoy.
90s.
When that band was huge in the mid-90s, a lot of people thought metal was dead.
We just slipped through a crack. Metallica just had the Black Album, which I love, we all do. And then you had Nirvana around that time. We're never influenced by any of that kind of stuff. We had our own sound and what we were doing.
Everybody else tried to
Pantera
change
kind
their
of breathed
sound.
some new life into it. It was still pretty
Pantera
good in
like,
the
"Nope."
underground, but there was nothing big, and Pantera was the one band that was out there being big.
Vulgar Display of Power is my favorite Pantera record.
Hell yeah.
To me, it's their Rain and Blood.
That's one of those records that really
Better
starts
than
to
Rain and
separate
Blood.
from the pack.
It brewed shit up and just changed
They're
everything.
whore. They're
Now you
badass.
listen to it and it sounds like it's, you know, it's common. Everybody, you know, all the metal bands kind of sound like that. But at the time, those were
Nobody sounded
pretty
like
brutal
that.
vocals.
Kind of standard metal singing now really in a lot of ways came from Phil.
It really inspired us to keep that heavy growl, you know.
I watched every single vocalist shave their head, take their shirts off, and wear those khaki half-cut off military pants. Even Rob Halford turned into Phil Anselmo's look.
Some of the vocals, like on Hostile, he did his vocals in the control room with me on a handheld mic. And when it was all distorted, of course, on purpose. And when we were done with the vocal take, he just took the mic and threw it into a garbage can next to the board that had a bunch of barbecue sauce and stuff on it, and it fed back, and that's the feedback that you hear at the end of that song.
As well as, of course, Dime being able to just, you know, shred.
When I heard his guitar, I was
No
like,
one bent those
what
strings
is
like
happening?
that.
I mean, it's like Spaceman who just came down from Mars and just.
He was kind of tortured by the fact that he always was going for something, and you know, we could never quite find it 100%. Dime was a perfectionist. Tone was a big deal.
His
although
tone
when
is
we
so
spoke
hard
of
to
tone in the
recreate.
studio, it usually was referring to if somebody didn't smell good. But his ability to hear minute things and sounds was pretty incredible. We would many times make mixes where I would raise a fader the width of one pencil mark, you know, just a minute amount, because he could hear it a little louder. And I was thinking that nobody could hear this, but then I'd play it back for him with the different versions, and he got it right every time. He knew exactly what he wanted to hear. And my job was to try to interpret that, what he heard.
Dime's legacy as a guitar, it's pretty much right there with Tony Iommi in regards of he's the king of that genre of extreme metal and, you know, the power groove and all that stuff.
He was, you know, breaking all the ground, and he was, you know, the next guitar hero. You had, you know, Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, and Dimebag. He was just the next in line for metal guitar heroes, and I don't know if anybody's come close since.
I tried my best to like learn Dimebag riffs, and it's hard. It's really hard.
One of the things people don't know about Dime, he had a guitar in his bathroom. I went in his bathroom one time.
I knew that.
I knew
I
that.
was like, he's got a guitar and he's got his little tape. What's that doing in here? I said, Dime, what's the deal with the guitar in the bathroom? He goes, man, that's where I write all my riffs. That's why my riffs are the shit.
I think of Pantera, I think of Dime. I don't feel the spirit of Dimebag ever leaves you. And once you knew Dime, he's with you forever.
The musical chemistry of Pantera was undeniable.
A lot of years under the belt playing together, growing up together.
The way the brothers worked on guitar and drums, phenomenal.
Vinny changed drums for a lot of bands.
Drumming, I remember, was just totally influential for me at that time. He would
That's
tape
Mike
like silver
Portnoy.
dollars on his kick drums with like a wooden beater and stuff. So I remember I tried that for a little while too.
Vinny's his drum sound. Nobody's drums sound like that. His drums still sound like that.
Yeah, amazing. It's so powerful. Like there's nothing that it still stands up
Ray
today when you
Luzier.
pop it in. It's like I heard a remastered version of it, and it was just like now it's loud and just in your face.
Rex on the bass, it just warmed it out nicely.
Rex held everything together while Dime soloed. You never missed a beat.
Amazing ability to make his tone complement and stand out also. Rex has always been one of my favorite bass players, tone-wise and performance-wise. I didn't know how good he really was until a few years after we'd stopped working together. And I did a recording with him, a separate recording, and it kind of blew me away at how good his tone was, how dialed in he was to the nuances of a bass tone, which is
I
very
mean, when you have to
difficult in this
play
kind of
with
music to
freaking
really
dime,
have definition.
you
because
have to be
lots of times
good.
it's just the
Well,
low
you have to
octave of the
fill
guitar.
in
They had
where
shred,
he's at, not
they had
at.
Phil as the
The
angel
dime's
singer,
everywhere.
and then they had this
So you had to
groove
find that
surround.
spot
so
to
they had three
fill.
really key components that kind of changed the course of where heavy metal went.
Every single band that exists today has some sort of influence by Pantera.
They're trying to touch Sabbath, they're trying to touch Metallica, and they're trying to touch Pantera, man.
You won't even listen to it 10 years from now and be like, it sounds kind of old. It doesn't. It even still sounds really modern.
Yeah.
You know, there's albums like that. You know, you have Back in Black, Van Halen 1, and Vulgar Display is definitely one of those type of albums. It's just an absolute classic from start to finish, a perfect album.
The album cover was definitely a bold statement, exactly what that record did. A punch, you know, to society, like, you know, check this out.
I remember Dime taking a picture of a face and putting it on his dad's copy machine and taking the face as it was copying and moving it so it blurred across like the cover does.
To me, it made sense, that album cover, to have a guy getting punched in the face, because I knew what a hardcore boxing fan Phil was.
First thing they brought us were all these pictures of these boxers fighting each other. It's like, no.
Oh, okay.
That's not what we're looking for. This is not what Vulgar Display of Power is. It's some guy getting jacked on the street.
They wanted a hand, a fist, hitting a long-haired guy. And at that time, long-haired models were extremely popular. I was calling everybody frantic. I was even considering going out and casting it off the street.
Some guy off the street and...
just a dude off the street?
A dude off the street, man. The label.
At the last second, I know Ford Model Agency called me and just said, hey, we have a long-haired model coming from LA. You know, and he came in and he was perfect for the shoot. His name was Sean Cross. We ended up becoming very good friends, best of friends. He was actually one of the groomsmen in my wedding.
Oh, that's cool.
At that time, I was getting really well known for a style that I was developing.
Got smoked in the jaw.
Like a lot of movement to photographs and photography. I would take images and I would combine strobe with tungsten, and then I'd put the shutter speed of my camera at a slow shutter speed, like an 1/8 of a second or 1/30th of a second. And through the movement, it would blur and it would become soft, and you'd have these like striking like movement to pictures. So I was well known for that. So I believe that was obviously the reason why they called me, because they wanted some kind of drama to what could just be a straightforward picture.
I guess it turned out to be an actual punch that was captured from somebody.
The man on the cover was paid $10 a punch and was hit in the face 30 times to get the right picture.
Oh, that's true.
31 times. 31 times.
According to Vinnie Paul, the man on the cover of Vulgar Display of Power was paid $10 a punch and he was hit in the face 31 times. This is one of the most widely disputed.
32 times.
32.
God, they're just adding.
Yeah, they're just making that crap
He got
up.
hit a bunch.
30 times, it's $310.
$310.
I've heard the stories, and people have asked me many, many times, but that's not what happened. It was a professional photo shoot. He was pushed quite hard, actually, because I really wanted it to look physical. So he was pushed really hard, you know, each and every time, but he was never punched, per se. I shot the album cover in color. I remember getting the film back and looking at the chromes on a light box and just going, wow, these are gorgeous.
I love all the animation.
I was shocked later on, months later, when I actually saw the album cover and saw it in black and white, and that they even kind of pixelated it. Personally, I thought it would have been better in color.
Vulgar Display of Power was the most important record of our career, and that, I do believe, puts a bow on top of the story.
All right, Loudwire. Good job.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that I didn't know.
Yeah, I knew the story would be nobody got punched in the face.
I thought someone actually got punched in the face. Like, this entire time.
No, but that story has been going around, and with 30, 31, 32, they all just like to embellish it because, I mean, it's supposed to be part of the lore.
It's like, because why not, right?
I heard this decades ago that it was basically a model that just got, they said he got clipped, but he said he was being pushed, the photographer. But it wasn't some dude getting jacked. It'd be hard to catch somebody in perfect shutter speed. It'd be tough.
Yeah.
So it would be easier just to, do it that way. No lies detected.
Yeah.
I grew up, Pantera, when they played the Cowboys tour, I believe I was like 15, 16 years old, and I was already playing in bands myself, and I knew the bar owners, so I could get into the bars. I want to say I saw them 3 times on Cowboys, and then they disappeared. They went on this ridiculously long tour. The first couple times I saw them, nobody knew who the hell they were. I remember Phil when, I played with Phil. He was in the band Razor White, and I was in my band, and he was doing Bon Jovi cover tunes. And
killed it.
Killed it, dude. He could sing. People didn't realize. Phil's a really good vocalist. And that's how I first met him and saw him, was he was doing Bon Jovi cover tunes in Razor White. And then he joined Pantera, and I had no idea the sound or style of Pantera. So the first time that we played, same bar as them, the same night opening, we opened. We were a little hair band, we played hair band music. I was up there singing freaking Skid Row and crap, and they come out and just destroyed the crowd. Made me feel, I felt like that. And so when he says nobody wants to play after them, that is a fact.
Yeah.
I've never had to do that. I wouldn't even want to touch a stage after they got done with it. And I've heard stories where Pantera went and just destroyed a Slayer crowd and got to the point where even Kerry King came out. Man, I've never seen anything like it. These guys were tired. On the Vulgar Display tour, we saw them in Dallas at the Dallas Stars Arena. And the dumbasses in the crowd decided they wanted to pull up the turf, the AstroTurf that was on the ground. So they ripped the turf out of the ground and were setting it on fire and throwing it around through the crowd.
Oh, God.
Because people are smart.
Smart.
And then they realized, hey, there's just plywood right here. So then they started pulling the plywood up,
God.
and they were surfing. They had it held up, and people were surfing on the plywood while Pantera was playing, while having pits. Greatest band ever to grace our planet. Influenced more bands than basically any other band in history. I'll raise your Black Sabbath and show you every band today.
Yeah.
And show you where Pantera influenced all of that. Like, share,
subscribe,
do the thing.
Do the thing.
And until the next time, guys, as always, come at me, bro.